What's up, guys? If you want to learn more quickly, I think this video will help you, so definitely subscribe and leave a like if it helps you. And if there's anything you want me to talk about, leave a comment any day. Anyways, today we're talking about why you need to revisit material over and over when it comes to learning. So every time I make a video, I always make it a point to say learning anything is a long process. Okay, if you think you're going to learn something in a day, a week, even a month, become a master at something, you're wrong. Okay, so even if you're a genius, it's still going to take you some time. So I'm here to give you the tools you need to actually find success in learning whatever it is, becoming a master, whatever it is. So yeah, today we're going to talk about why you should review material. So why you need to go back over things over and over again. Okay, so number one, okay, our nuance grows deeper over time and with repetition. Okay, so if you think about like a concept, that concept is built of sub-concepts. Those sub-concepts have other sub-concepts, and they have a lot of different branches and different ways they can go. And the way the information connects together is actually makes a lot of sense once you understand those deep layers and nuance. But at first, you're not going to understand. You might just understand like the overall concept, like what you're trying to do, but you don't know how to get there, and you don't know all the layers below it. And while building up those small nuances and those small layers, it takes a long time and it takes a lot of repetition. So that's the point of revisiting material. Okay, so the basic premise is that what we want is we want to become very nuanced. We want to become very deep in our layers of thinking when we're trying to reach mastery. So we need to repeat over and over how to do this. Okay, step two, we only learn very small pieces of information over time. Okay, again, this is big key point here, is that over time, it's going to take a long time to learn whatever it is you want to learn. To become a master, it's going to take a long time. So we only learn small pieces of information over time. You're not going to learn a ton all in one day. You're not going to become an expert at any one concept in your skill all in one day. Okay, you're only going to learn and retain very small pieces of information, okay, over time. So every day you need to be feeding yourself these small pieces of information. Too many people are setting their sights on like gaining a ton of information all at once, doing a ton all in 1 week, and one, they burn out. Two, they don't retain that information. And three, instead of building up that very nuanced information slowly over time, they try to do it all at once, and they create just a very shaky understanding, a very shaky foundation in whatever they're learning. Okay, so revisiting material, I think a really useful analogy that I got from Steve Kaufman, a language YouTuber. I don't know where he got the information from, but basically learning anything is kind of like mowing a lawn. But imagine your lawn hasn't been mowed in a year, right? The grass is going to be very high. So if you try to cut all the information, all the grass all at once, so imagine this is information you're learning, it's going to take you forever. You're going to constantly be getting stuck. Your mower is going to get stuck over and over and over again, right? So what you have to do is you have to set your mower up higher and just cut off that top layer of grass. And then the second time you come around, cut off the next layer and the next layer. It's just like that with learning. You get that top layer, okay, that basic information, the top layer, the overall concept, and then you go deeper and deeper and deeper, okay? So if you just try to go super deep right from the start, that information is basically useless to you. You have no context for it. It's going to be really difficult to actually put somewhere in your brain. There's nowhere to store it. Just like trying to cut all the grass all at once, really long grass, okay, your mower is going to constantly be getting stopped up, and it's not very efficient. So you have to mow basically one layer at a time. So get the top layer, right? And then maybe another layer, and then another layer, okay? And the more times you do this, the more closer you get to that fundamental understanding, the fundamental nuance behind whatever it is you're doing. So anyways, guys, getting into revisiting material, how often should you revisit material? Okay, so here's my opinion. You should revisit material when you've stopped improving or noticed the limits of your knowledge popping up over and over again. So obviously, if you're new at any skill, the limit of your knowledge is going to be basically everything, because what I mean by limit of knowledge is just beyond your current level of understanding. So when you're new to your skill, almost everything is like that. So what's important to find your limits of knowledge when you're just starting is the situations and the positions or whatever it is, whatever skill you're learning that pop up over and over and over again that you begin to notice. Those are what I would focus on. Okay. So maybe you learn like a tutorial or you learn a little something and then you're trying to apply that knowledge and apply that knowledge, but you keep getting to a situation where, oh, I don't know what to do anymore. That's probably your limit of knowledge. That's where you need to go back again and probably revisit whatever it is you were learning. Okay. So also, when you've stopped improving or noticed the limits of knowledge, it could just also be that whatever you're trying to implement, you tried for a bit, maybe it worked a little bit, but not perfectly, and you're kind of not seeing that it's helping you. Okay. It doesn't seem to be working the way it was working for whatever person you learned it from. That's when you need to go back and revisit again and chop off some more of that grass, some more of that fundamental knowledge, okay, some more of that nuance. And you're going to have to do that over and over again. Okay, so you shouldn't always revisit material though. Sometimes you need to move on to new material instead of keeping on revisiting the same material. So it's a balance. It's kind of following your motivation. Okay, if you think I've learned this for a while, I'm getting a little bored of it, I don't really want to learn any more about it, sure, move on to new material. But if you feel like in the second column here, you moved on to something else and eventually your motivation returned or there was a need again for that original material, that's a great time to go back and revisit it. So whenever you're feeling the motivation, whenever you're feeling like this information is going to be really useful to you, it's right at your limit of knowledge and it's going to help you progress, that's when I would revisit again when that motivation is high. So this may happen, you may learn a little bit about this thing, and then you go learn another thing, and then you come back to this thing, and then you go learn another thing, and then you go back to this one over here, and then you come back to this one, and eventually you're going to kind of build up those fundamental layers over and over and over again, but you have to keep revisiting those concepts, okay, over and over. So yeah, whenever your motivation returns, that's when I would go back and revisit the material again. Okay, and next, when you've mastered the surface level ideas and you need more info, you need more nuance. So maybe you've mastered like whatever you learned in a tutorial video or a book, and you've, revisited that information over and over until you kind of have like a really fundamental understanding of it. That's when you may need to go find the next step of information, even more nuanced information than that. Okay, so once you feel like you've mastered the surface level and you want to get even more nuance, even more details. So for example, if you're learning like a technique in jiu-jitsu and you find that you can do it really well on white belts, but when it comes to purple belts and above, you find it really difficult to apply. Well, that might be because, yeah, you learned the basic idea, you've got the basics down, but now you need even more nuance. So you need to go revisit that information again, but this time in even more detail, maybe from an instructional or something where they go into really specific details about everything. So again, following your motivation, okay, realizing when you need more information. So when you're hitting those limits of your knowledge, or you've stopped improving, or it's not working exactly the way you want it to, or it doesn't work on high level people, that's when you need to go back and revisit the information again and find more information. All right, so how do we actually revisit information? How would I go about like going over that information again? Well, what I would do is simply just rewatch the original video or reread the material again. Okay, so literally just go watch it again. Of course, I recommend engaging deeply and focusing on it when you watch it, but sometimes even just watching it passively while you're riding a train or driving your car or something, not watching a video obviously while you're driving your car, but maybe listening to the information again just passively can help. Of course, actively listening, so really focusing and engaging with it, is obviously going to lead to greater returns. But sometimes when you're revisiting something, if you just passively listen to it, you'll pick up a lot of information that you missed the first time around. So, the way I want you to think about it is like the second time you go and see information again, you're going to have even more context than you had before for that information. So you're going to naturally pick up kind of the next pieces of information. So all you need to do is go and just rewatch the material, reread the material, okay, that you already had listened to before. All right, so yeah, again, you should have more context this time and you should absorb the information. Now, here's where some people will talk about taking notes on the material. And for me, I don't really like taking notes. I've just found that even if I take notes, I never review them. And yeah, I never really use them again. And they don't seem to help me very much. That's just my personal experience. It could be that I'm misusing notes. But personally, I just like watching the material, whatever it is, and engaging with it and thinking about like, oh yeah, I've seen that situation before. That makes sense based on what I've seen before. That makes sense based on this other information I watched. Okay, and just slowly letting that information absorb into me and just knowing that I'll have to revisit over and over and not trying so hard to grab all the information. Again, not trying so hard to like cut the whole lawn all at once, but just getting that information that's easily available. Okay, the top layer and then the next layer and then the next layer. I'm not trying to like force myself to learn more than like I'm currently ready for, which is what a lot of people do when it comes to learning. They try to learn concepts that are outside of their scope currently and that aren't really going to be effective or helpful for them because again, they don't have enough context for that information in their brain already. So there's really nowhere to store it within yourself. So yeah, again, go and revisit the material. You're going to have more context and you'll be able to absorb even more than you did the first time. Okay, finally, whenever you're doing this along the whole process, again, you need to be engaging with your material, engaging deeply with it, connecting with it on a personal level, okay, and trying to focus as much as you can in the present moment whenever you're doing it. Again, passive listening, so passively absorbing information can also help. So whenever you're cleaning your room, washing dishes, going for a walk, whatever, you can always listen to something about your technique, about your skill, okay? But every once in a while, like a majority of your time, if you really want to improve, you need to be engaging mentally with whatever you're doing. So if you're watching, an instructional in jiu-jitsu, or you're watching a tutorial video, or you're reading about how to code something, you need to be thinking about, well, how does that relate to what I'm doing? Where am I seeing these patterns when I'm applying my skill, etc.? So you have to be actually engaging mentally, which really is the most difficult part and the part that takes the most like effort, because you'll see a lot of people, they just do their skill for years and years and years and years, but they don't actually improve. Well, it's because they're not deeply engaging with it. They're not actually like thinking about how it applies to them and how they can use that information to their advantage and how it relates to their experience with whatever skill they're doing. Okay, so yep, just to recap, basically, again, revisiting is really important because, again, our nuance grows over time. You have to get those layers and layers and layers, and you're not going to get all the layers at once. You have to go back and get a little more, and then go back and get a little more, and then find a new thing, and then, go somewhere else, and then come back, and, a little more, and a little more, and a little more. Okay, again, and this build up slowly every day, and that's how you build up a real fundamental knowledge. You're not going to build it up quickly. It's going to take time. You need to give your brain time to absorb that information. Okay, and again, how often? Well, follow your motivation, okay? Follow, if you have a need to learn something, if you feel like it's going to be really useful, then you're going to engage with it way more. So if you really have like a jiu-jitsu competition coming up, or you're about to apply for a job, or whatever it is, well, find the information that you need, and that's the information you're going to have motivation for. So the information you need that's at the limit of what you already know, that's going to be like the easiest information to pick up, the information you have the most motivation for. Again, it's okay to go learn something else, and then come back when your motivation returns. Be careful about spreading yourself too thin. Okay, it is really good to focus on like one thing at a time. But again, if you just don't have motivation and you're not excited to learn it, well, go try something else. Okay, and then when the motivation for this thing comes back, when that thing becomes useful again, or you think that's what I need to get to the next level, well, come back to that material. Okay. Or again, when you've mastered the surface level ideas, and you need the next layer and you're ready for the next layer, go back and revisit the material. Or when you've completely mastered that original material and, basically you feel like you could teach that material clearly and distinctly to someone else, that's when you may need to go find new material regarding this skill that goes even deeper, okay? And then that material you'll have to revisit over and over again as well. All right, again, and then how to revisit it? Again, I would just rewatch it. Even if you want to, you can listen to it passively at times over and over again, or just listen to things regarding that specific skill inside your skill over and over again, or reread the material, whatever it is you learn from. Okay, and again, the next time you read it, you're going to have more context than you did the first time, so you're naturally going to pick up more information. If you want to take notes, again, personal preference. I don't personally like taking notes. I've never found them so helpful, and I found that my rate of progress is actually better if I just don't take notes and simply just focus on what I'm listening to or what I'm watching. And finally, yep, do your best to mentally engage with the material. Okay, so again, passive listening sometimes is okay, but a majority of your time, if you really want to improve quickly, should be actively mentally engaged with the material, thinking about how it relates to your personal experience. And you, again, have to be doing your skill the whole time. So the most important thing is doing your skill. Okay, if you're only doing this, you're only gathering information, you're not going to improve. You have to actively be doing your skill. Okay, again, that should be the majority of your time. I want to make that very clear. Actively doing your skill and trying new things. Okay, that needs to be the majority of your time. But people often underestimate the amount they can gain, the amount of information they can gain by actually watching other people doing the skill, listening to people talking about it, and revisiting that information over and over. Okay, so I hope that helps you guys. Again, if there's anything you want me to talk about or you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll definitely make a video, a short, or just respond to your comments there. And yeah, if you find these videos helpful, please subscribe and leave a like. Anyways, guys, have a great day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.